I always bring up the scribbling model. I say, what are children doing when they're scribbling? And some people will say, well, they're drawing a picture. And I say, no, they're not. They'll think about it. I said, they're watching what happens.
I'm gonna start drawing over the top.
It's a developmental issue. They are developing vision.
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, at Emory University Hospital. And from there, my mother took me to live with my grandparents. She was living with them. My father was overseas fighting the war to end all wars.
Brilliant, wan, thoughtful boy with an interest in the stars and art and conversation, thinking. And that really wasn't very manly. And the person who came into his life, I think, decided to shape him up in some way that was probably not very pleasant. I think his father returned home from the Korean War? I think that was very tough thereafter. And he found himself kind of a mutant in the South. And the South is also very manly.
In the family situation that I think he, and maybe to some degree my mother, but definitely I think he grew up in, people didn't really talk about their emotions, From down south, it's down south gentility, you don't really talk about how you feel or what's happening to you. It's all very surface, and you try to make people happy, and you try to, you just don't dig that deep.
When I started to draw, it was for like a miracle for them. Especially my grandmother, when she was watching my drawings and she was amazed,
I think, well, my mom was a painter, and she wasn't a painter. She went to art school, and she was a graphic designer, and she recognized that. She recognized who I was really early, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I had the great gift of a parent who was just always pushing me forward and saying, you can do anything you want, you just have to be really serious about it. And said, work really hard, and you'll make it as an artist. I never had the curse of a parent who said, you've got to have a fallback plan. She's like, you don't need a fallback plan, just do this really well and you'll make it. And she's been right, she's always been right, even in, it's hard work, but if you clock enough hours in the chair, I kid you not, anyone will make it if you sit long enough and work long enough. The 10,000 hours.
They'd go insane if they did that. You've got to step out of it. You are part of the real world. You've got the rest of life to deal with. But if you're going to go to those places, you've got to go there. But at the same time, a lot of my work is about my kids and my family life and local things, and that balance is lovely. When something's difficult and troubling. The film that I'm working on at the moment is about a couple who've lost a baby. Well, how much more? That's a really dark, awful thing to happen.
I became very, very depressed. Clinical depression. It runs in my family. My mother was depressed. My two first cousins fought depression all their lives. And it finally caught up with me, and I went into a very deep depression. And I was hospitalized.
When he voluntarily put himself in the hospital in 2002. So it's hard to say. He has done very little artwork since then. He hadn't done very much for the couple years before. And what most of what he's done has really been, not very good.
And you do kind of know quality when you see it. Whether it's Charles Schultz or Winsor McCay, it's there. So it's good to be able to have a creative outlet, because I see a lot of people who have violent tendencies who don't have creative outlets or expressive outlets to be able to find a transmutive way to say, I hurt, or I'm lonely.
And I had a very small suite of skills. I could drive fast, I could fist fight if I had to, I could flirt, and I could draw. I could doodle. I drew incessantly. And you sort of look at that and you kind of go, well, maybe the drawing is the one I should be doing, because the other three are like trouble.
There's a real misnomer about art and painting that you suffer for your artwork. You don't suffer for your artwork. It may be incredibly difficult. Your artwork is a gift. It makes you who you are.
I can't wait to draw a comic book or a science fiction illustration. And the idea of finding out that someone will pay you to do it was fantastic. It was a fantastic opportunity that I don't think any of us actually believed. And in that, I guess you could say every one of us worked exactly the same, because it all worked from the heart. Having to do it, there was an internal burning need to do it.